This week we'll be looking at 5 beginner mountain bike tricks that basically anyone can do.
911, call me sometime.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of MTB. This week we'll be looking at 5 beginner mountain bike tricks that basically anyone can do. So before we go into this video, I want to just tell you guys that by the title, by everybody can do, I mean that you need to have enough dedication and you need to put some time into it and a reasonably good bike. It doesn't even have to be a bike like I have. An entry-level hardtail should be able to do these tricks, no problem. So with that said, let's get into the video. The first trick on our list is the Endo. The Endo is simply just putting your back wheel in the air. Now, an Endo is a pretty basic beginner mountain bike trick and pretty much an essential for trials. It's not very hard and you could put a ton of variations on it. Some of the variations that you could put on an Endo include Endo crank flip, a stoppie, which I'm not very good at, and even pivots, like 90-degree pivots and stuff. When we slow down the clip, we could see exactly how I did the Endo. I preloaded the suspension, pressed the front brake, and shifted my weight forward. Then to bring it back down, I simply put my weight back and let go of the front brake. So the second trick that we're going to be learning right now is really meant to complement the Endo, and it's honestly, the Endo and the Fakie are really good things to know if you want to get into trials riding, but they're not necessarily only for trials. You could also use them on the trails like I showed you with the steps. You could get over obstacles pretty easily. So now let's try to learn how to Fakie, which is just basically riding your bike backwards. So Fakies themselves are a pretty simple trick. It's basically, just like I said earlier, steering your bike backwards. And that's what gets most people, just the steering. The ideal place to practice would be a tree like I have over here. You just get a little ways up the tree and then just try riding down and getting out of the Endo. There's really not that much advice I could give on how to do a Fakie. It's basically just one of those tricks that you just have to practice and get the hang of. But once you've done enough practicing with the tree, you can try to join the Endo and the Fakie together to do an Endo Fakie. Before we move on to the next trick, I have to show you guys how to get out of the Fakie. Basically, how I do it is I feather my rear brake, put pressure on the cranks, and then turn out of it. Raise your seat and lower your gears, because we're going on to wheelies. Wheelies are a pretty practical skill to learn, as they both enable you to show off and to get over obstacles. Now, excuse this because this was absolutely terrible, because now I use manuals to get over most things, and I'm really out of practice with wheelies. So, basically a wheelie is just getting your front wheel in the air using torque from your pedals. A good place to start is to put your gears down pretty low and raise your seat, because your seat being raised will make the amount that you have to lift your wheel a little less, so your wheelie will be a little closer to the ground. Then all you want to do is preload your suspension and push up with the torque from your pedals, and that should hopefully lift your front wheel into the air. So something that will most likely start happening once you progress through wheelies is that you'll start looping out. Now this means that you need to start regulating your back brake, but that's a topic for another video because that's more of an intermediate thing. But anyways, you shouldn't really get scared or intimidated by this because it takes a long time to learn wheelies. I started pulling my first really big wheelies 2 months after learning, so really take your time with this trick. And now let's move on to the next trick. So the next two tricks that we will be doing are going to be a little harder than the previous 3, and they're just going to be a bunny hop and a 1-footer. So a bunny hop is going to take a little bit to learn, but it shouldn't be impossible. And then the 1-footer, or I'm sorry if I said no footer before, I meant 1-footer. 1-footer is a really good introduction into tricks in the air. These basically how my progression with those tricks went was basically 1-footer, no footer, 1-hander, no hander. So I think it really helps just like understanding tricks in the air and how like you could take off like parts of your body from the bike and put them back on. So I guess let's get into the bunny hop. Bunny hopping is basically an essential part of mountain biking. From getting over obstacles to getting more air off of ramps and curbs, it'll help you out in many things. Now, firstly, let's start with the American bunny hop. The difference between the American and the English bunny hop is that in the American, you raise your front wheel with a manual-like technique and then shift your weight forward to bring your back wheel up with it. Now, in the English, however, you preload into your suspension and bring both wheels up at the same time. First, let's play the American bunny hop in slow motion so we could really see what's going on. We could see that I start by lifting my front wheel with the manual-like technique that we talked about, and then with that lifted front wheel, I'm in sort of a standing position, and then I put my weight over the bars, which is forcing the back wheel to come up. Now, the English is basically, it's all about preloading into your bike and popping up with it. One-footers are a great way to introduce yourself into tricks in the air and like just taking off parts of your body off the bike and putting them on, as they're pretty low risk. If you want to start doing one-footers, basically just practice landing with one foot off a small ramp or a curb. Then you could start putting your foot to the side, because if you put it up then the pedal will follow it, so you have to put your foot to the side. Then you could just start sending it, but also watch out and make sure that you place your foot back on the pedal. And if there's ever a doubt in your mind, just land with your foot out wide so you don't scratch up your shins. So guys, that's it for this episode of ABMTB. Hopefully you enjoyed these 5 beginner tricks, and hopefully you start learning them, because mountain biking is all about progression, and these are 5 tricks to help you get started. So, see you guys next time.